Hi, it's Mr. Lum again, and today we're going to be looking at ionic compounds. Ionic compounds are when positive ions and negative ions form a bond. In other words, an electron or electrons of one ion is given to another ion. This is usually done between a metal and a non-metal. Now, ionic compounds are different from covalent compounds. In covalent compounds, electrons are shared. In ionic compounds, they are given from one atom to another atom. But in covalent compounds, electrons are shared. Ionic compounds are usually between metals and nonmetals. Covalent compounds are usually between nonmetals and other nonmetals. Let's take a look at the periodic table. So here's a periodic table, and what we can see is that it is divided into two pieces: metals and nonmetals. So in ionic compounds is when we have a metal these are the metals, combines with a nonmetal. These are the nonmetals in blue, as well as hydrogen. Hydrogen can act as a metal and as a nonmetal sometimes, but it is a nonmetal. Now, an ionic compound is when a metal and a nonmetal form a bond. When a metal gives a nonmetal an electron. So here's a closer look at what we call the steps on the periodic table, or sometimes referred to as the staircase. What we see on this side of the staircase, or this side of this line, are the metals, and on this side are the nonmetals. So again, ionic compound would be something like aluminum oxide, where aluminum is going to be giving electrons to oxygen. Aluminum would give electrons, and since it's losing electrons, electrons are negative, aluminum then becomes positive. Oxygen is receiving electrons, and electrons are negative. Since oxygen is receiving electrons, oxygen will become negative. So let's take a look at when we have an ionic compound, how do we name it? So here are 3 steps on how to name an ionic compound. The first step is name the positive ion first. Second is name the negative ion. And the final step is add the suffix "ide" to the negative ion. Suffix means the ending of a word. Prefix means the beginning of a word. But today we're just going to be adding a suffix "ide" to the negative ion. So let's take a look at the first example right here. We have Mg3N2. So on your periodic table, what you want to do is you want to find the positive ion, Mg. And we find it right here. So Mg, the name of it is magnesium. So we're going to name the positive ion first, magnesium. And then we're going to name the negative ion second. N is nitrogen. Then we're going to add the suffix "ide" to the negative ion. So before we add the suffix "-ide to this ion, to the negative ion, to this negative ion, what we have to do is we have to remove the old suffix. So what we're going to do, here's the old suffix, ogen. And what we're going to do is add IDE. So now when I rewrite it, it's going to say magnesium nitride. And that's our final answer. Let's take a look at the second one now. Again, we're going to name the positive ion first. This is called sodium. We know it's positive because of the symbol up here. Then we name the negative ion second, chlorine. And then our final step, we add the suffix "-ide to the negative ion. Again, we have to remove the old suffix and add the new suffix. So our new name for this is now sodium chloride. At this point, you can put the video on pause and try doing these two yourself. But again, you just follow the same steps. Name the positive ion first, magnesium. Then the negative ion, fluorine. But instead of, I'm going to take off the INE and add IDE, ide. So magnesium fluorine becomes magnesium fluoride. And that's my final answer. And our next one, Al2O3. I find Al on the table and name it. Aluminum. I then find O, which is oxygen. Now, oxygen is interesting that it has a very long suffix. We have to remove these 4 letters, and we can write IDE. So aluminum oxygen becomes aluminum oxide. And that's how we can name ionic compounds. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write the ionic compound formulas. We're given the name, like this one, magnesium phosphide, and what we're going to do is we're going to give the formulas. So here is a piece of the periodic table again. So the first step in writing the ionic compound formulas is you write the positive ion first. So here's magnesium, and we find magnesium right here. Mg. Now, Mg, if you can read this, says 2+ up in the corner. Now the second one is phosphide. Phosphide comes from phosphorus, which is P3-. Now if we simply add it together, MgP, the charge is not 0, and that is step 3. Make sure that the total charge is 0. Right now, the charge is 2 plus and a 3 minus, so the charge is minus 1. We need to make this charge 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Mg 2 plus and take 3 of them. So the total charge is plus 6. And we're going to take 2 phosphorus or phosphide ions. So the total charge is minus 6. Once this is added up, this has a total charge of 0. This has a total charge of, well, there's 3 mg's. So we can write the number 3 right here. There's 2 phosphorus. So we can write 2 right here. And that's going to be our final answer. Mg3P2. Now, there's a slightly easier way or a quicker way to do this. What we could have done is we could have just simply went Mg 2 plus and P 3 minus and we just take this number and cross and write it right here, and take this number and cross and write it right here, which would be 3 and 2. Both ways are acceptable. Now the next one is aluminum bromide. Here's aluminum. Bromide comes from bromine. So again, we write the positive ion first. Al 3 plus and bromine Br minus. If it's just a minus, it just means minus 1. Now we'll use the second quicker method. Al Br. This we can write right here. And this we can write right here. So our answer becomes Al1 Br3. Now, normally we don't write 1 right here. So what we can do is we'll write Al Br3. Again, we don't write 1s as subscripts. And this is our final answer.